Hey everybody, Ben Nelson, the everyday real estate investor here. Hope you're having another fantastic day out there, exploring all the amazing real estate opportunities that are out there. Again, despite what the headlines say, it's always a good time to buy real estate because there's always opportunities. Everything that's out there is very generic, very general. Don't let the headlines scare you from moving forward on your goals for investing in real estate. Make sure you're looking for the right opportunities, staying educated, and that's why you're listening to this and hopefully listening to other podcasts as well to be educated, to be inspired, to know that there's opportunity out there no matter what the market is doing. Let's jump into it today. We're going to talk about value add real estate and how to create equity and find those opportunities. I love this because this to me is one of the big differences. I mean, there's a lot of differences between real estate and investing in that and other investment opportunities, stock market, lots of things you could be investing in. Obviously, I'm obviously partial to real estate, and there's a lot of reasons for that. But one of the big things is that you can actually, outside of the overall market forces that you don't have control over, you have some control over the value that you have in your property and the value that you can create. Where you own a stock, you are at the whim of the market. Yeah, you can make decisions based on all the data and what's going on and how the company's doing and emotion within the marketplace, all of that stuff. And none of that you have control over your decision. You have control over what you're deciding you think is going to happen with the market, but you don't really have control over the actual value of the stock and the value in the company, right? So real estate is very different, where you actually have some control over what the value of the property is, and that's based on the condition, income, all that stuff. We're going to get into how to do that and how to create some opportunity and create some equity in different ways in real estate. I'm going to break this down into a couple different categories because there's different types of equity, and that'll make sense here in just a minute. And I'm going to talk about two of them today. The first one is found equity. So this is equity that is there. It's already, there's already equity and you're finding it. So how do you find equity? What does that mean? This could be on a number of different things. These are your don't wanters, right? So someone that owns a property, they're done with it. They're willing to, walk away with getting less than they could get in the regular market, whether that's because there's a life situation going on, they're just tired of dealing with the property, they need the money for something else, and they're just not looking necessarily to get top dollar out of it because they have other uses for that money, or they have to just get it off their plate and move on to something else in life, right? And so people hear this sometimes, and I think they think, well, you're taking advantage of someone. You're taking advantage of someone that is in a rough spot or needs to do something else. And I don't see it that way, and I don't really think that a lot of people that sell in these situations think of it that way either on their end. I think for the most part, they're just glad to have someone that's willing to buy their property with a number that works for them and a number that lets them move on to whatever they're doing. So just because you're buying something for under market value, the seller could be totally aware of that and 100% okay with that. So don't hear stealing a property from someone, or taking advantage of them, trying to hide and be deceitful. No, this is we're providing solutions, and you can find people in those situations that are ready to hand that off, and they're okay giving some equity over to the new owner, right? So your don't wanters, your don't wanters are people that don't want to continue to hold onto a property for whatever reason. Those are what you're looking for. You're adding value again in the service you're providing by providing an easy solution to the seller. So don't forget that what you're bringing to the table is something of value, right? You're providing a way for them to close quickly, maybe a creative solution in financing, something that is beneficial to them to be able to do what they want to do. And so there's value in that, and sometimes that's in the form of equity. So who do you look for in this kind of situation to try to find these scenarios? So tired landlords, people that have owned buildings for a long period of time, are probably they're self-managing. Maybe they're tired of dealing with their tenants and repairs and all the things that come with being a landlord if you're not hiring a management company. And there are old school landlords out there that that's what they do, and they manage their own properties. There's nothing necessarily wrong with that. That's not how I run my business, but there's a lot of people that do that, and at a certain point it wears on you, right? Changes in laws, tenants causing issues, repairs adding up, all these things that you have to manage, and eventually it's like, you know what, I love this cash flow. I don't love having to deal with this on an everyday basis, right? I'm supposed to be retired now. This is supposed to be my retirement, and I'm working every day on my property and dealing with the issues there. So, and those are also prime scenarios for seller financing, right? Because you have someone that is used to income coming in, and they would probably like to continue to receive that regular monthly income, but without the hassles. So just a quick side note there, those are great scenarios for exploring seller financing with an owner. Transitioning owners with deferred maintenance. So an owner that has lived there a long time, but maybe has let some maintenance things go. They're ready to move on, and they understand that, hey, that it needs work, or I just need this certain amount to be able to move to this other facility or whatever, right? Out-of-state owners are a great one as well, because a lot of times they don't see the property. They don't maybe necessarily know what's going on in the local market, where you have some indication of where things are headed in that neighborhood. And again, that's not taking advantage of someone. If you're giving them a number that makes sense for them to get them where they're going, and you're privy to things that are coming down the pipeline, and that's going to bring you some equity. Hey, that's why you paid for your knowledge as well, right? So, and then another one that I think that a lot of people don't really think about, and this is probably not when you're starting out, but just something to keep on your radar for when you maybe have the ability to purchase some more, is buying in bulk. So you buy a portfolio from someone else. Think of someone with 20 single family homes spread across either one market or multiple, right? And especially in ones that are broken up like this, a bulk sale is very appealing to a lot of sellers, because think about trying to facilitate selling 20 single family homes all at once, especially if you're trying to do a 1031 exchange. And we're not going to get into the nuances of that, but there's certain time frames that have to be met to identify and purchase a replacement property to defer your gains. So if you're selling a bunch of individual properties that are spread out, that's going to be really, really difficult to try to time out the closings to make, say you're selling those and you're going to trade into just one apartment building. Or one commercial building, or whatever it is. I'm going to consolidate all this. I don't have to manage all of these separate properties anymore. Even if I have property management, it's still kind of a hassle. Let's put it all into one building. I know where my one building is at. I can manage that, or have a manager manage that. I just don't want to deal with all this scattered. And this happens all the time. They're going to probably be willing to take a pretty significant discount off of the current value, because if someone's willing to buy all of them, because you are providing a solution to them that, hey, I've got one buyer for all these properties. Yeah, I'm taking a 10 or 20% hit on the value, but I don't have to worry about trying to sell 20 properties to 20 different people and try to somehow make them all close within a time frame that makes sense to buy this other building, right? That's just not going to happen. So you can get a discount, say, hey, I'm going to provide you a solution. I'm going to close all at once. They know they have a buyer. You're getting equity right up front, and you're providing a solution for them to be able to move on to their next purchase without having the hassle and the questions of, is this going to happen? Am I going to be able to, bring all these together? What if one sale of these 20 falls apart, and now this whole thing explodes, right? And then you're in trouble. So that's a great place to look. And that's just one scenario. Someone with a portfolio selling. Sometimes banks are unloading portfolios when they have bank-owned properties. So there's a few different scenarios where you can buy in bulk and be able to buy into some pretty good equity. Okay, the next one we're going to move on to is forced equity. So this one, found equity is great because you're not doing anything physically to the property. You're typically finding a scenario and providing a solution that offers that ability to get that found equity and step into equity immediately, right? So, and actually there's another, so I guess really quick, we've talked to a couple turnkey providers that, build, and then, you put your deposit down, they build, you have equity right away when the house is complete. So that would be kind of a found equity solution as well, because you're really not, I guess you're forcing it in the way that you're building, but so I don't know which category that falls into actually, but that's another scenario as well that I guess you could put like kind of right on the line. But forced equity, so this is you doing something to the property, and that's where I say I guess the build to rent stuff is you're not really doing that yourself to the property. You're not forcing the equity, so that's the difference. But forced equity is where you're taking something, you're buying a property, and then you're doing something to it to increase the value. And there's a lot of ways that you can do this. So we're going to go over a few of those right now, so you've got some ideas as to how to go about doing that. So the first one is that, of course, you can rehab it, right? So you add value by updating it, by giving it new systems, by updating it practically, or doing things to it that are going to be within the current trends. You take your 1970s house, your 1980s house, it's never been remodeled, completely dated, not relevant to today's trends and what people are looking for. You update it with, all the finishes and maybe changing some floor plan stuff and things like that are going to make it more appealing to today's buyer. Now, all of a sudden, it's worth more money because people are willing to pay more for that product, right? So you're forcing that equity by doing something to it. You're physically improving the property to increase the value. Adding units. This is basically, this is not subdivision. This is not necessarily, going through any of that process, but just adding a unit where there can be another unit. A lot of local zoning here in the Portland metro area has changed to where now single family zones, you can add accessory dwelling units. You can build a duplex. So you can add a duplex in a lot of cases. So there's ability, if there's room to build it, where you could build a new or additional unit on that property. I've seen other people do, they do basement unit it's got a lower level unfinished, but it's got high ceilings and it's got a separate entrance. You turn a basement into a second unit. So there's all sorts of ways to add units on and not even have to do anything with the lot itself. The lot still stays one lot. I did this on one of my properties, and I've used this as a case study scenario that I've talked about a couple times on here, where everybody drove by it. They didn't realize that I lost out on it, I think 3 or 4 times because I got outbid, and then I did eventually end up getting it, and we built an accessory dwelling unit to it. A detached structure, looks just like a single family home. Wouldn't even be able to tell unless you know that it's all on one lot, but it looks like they're 2 separate lots, but they're not. But everybody, I probably 4 or 5 times when I was out on the job site, I had people drive by. I would have bought that, but I didn't know you could do that, right? So adding units is a big thing you can do, because essentially you have, depending on what you can build, you're getting the land for free, right? A big part of making something work and having it pencil is the cost of the land. So if you can buy something with a structure on it, and then now you can add 1 or 2 units, your cost basis is only the construction costs. It's not, you don't have any land cost in that. So that's huge in being able to do something and add value, especially when you're trying to cash flow it or whatever you're trying to do with it. It's just that land cost being 0 essentially is a huge deal. Development, that is something you can do. So the other one was adding units. Weren't talking about splitting things up or anything like that. It's all, just add it to the same lot. But development is a way to force equity. You can do as little as getting the entitlements to the land, which means you're not really doing anything. You're basically just doing paperwork, right? You're saying, okay, it's zoned for this. It's an acre. I can get 6 lots per acre. So I'm going to go through the steps with this local jurisdiction, whether that's the city or the county. I'm going to get the approvals to do that. And then now I've created value because now I've gotten it approved that I can have 6 lots here. So now it's worth more money than it was before, right? You didn't even do anything. You just went through paperwork, got the approval, and got it through the process, the initial process, for them to say, yes, you can do this, now it's worth more. And then from there, you can take it and you can fully subdivide it. You can complete the subdivision or the partition if it's just a couple lots. And you can sell off those lots. You can stop there, or you can build it out. Each step you're adding value, you're forcing equity because you've done something to improve the property and what can be done with the property. So, your entitlement stage, you're adding equity, you're forcing equity. Your subdivision stage, getting it to finished lots, you're forcing some equity as well. Your ground up construction, building the houses or apartment buildings or whatever you're building, that's going to create some equity as well. So there's equity to be found or created in each of those scenarios. This is similar, but it's different. It's different. Change of use or zoning. So yeah, this is definitely different actually. A building that was used for one purpose and you can change it into another use that is worth more money. One example of this is nightly rentals. So a functioning nightly rental that has history and is doing well is going to have more value in the marketplace than the same exact house that has never been used in that way. Number one, because of typically the approvals that you have to get to be able to do that. And number two, because you have income history and you have a business that you're selling, not just a physical house. So you're changing the use, you're bringing in a different kind of income, a different amount of income, and you are now raising that value and forcing that equity. And change of use can go across, can go from commercial to residential, or it can go really from anything. You see people coming in and converting old warehouses to residential use, right? So you're changing the use from where it's worth one value with this type of use. Well, if you change it to this other type of use, because of the area it's in and what's around there and what's in demand, now it's worth more just based on the use. And sometimes, again, just like the entitlement, sometimes that's just a matter of going through a process with the city or the local jurisdiction, getting that change approved. Now you can do this with it instead, and then you don't even have to necessarily be the one to do it. Hand it off to someone that's maybe more in a position to do that, and develop it from there, and you get that equity that you forced in between. One thing that I want, and a quick note, this is where it's really important to know what is allowed and what's not allowed and what's changing within your city and zoning, because that's where you find opportunities. When what is it now, what can it be, what is it going to probably be able to be in the future. That's how you find those opportunities and flush those out, is by knowing what's going on and what is changing. One thing that I want to really make sure to point out here is that, so in residential generally, other than maybe the nightly rental scenario where if you can sell that as a business, but in general, residential real estate, single family homes, 1 to 4 unit, 1 to 4 unit plexes, 2 to 4 unit plexes. Your value is based on comparable sales. So similar properties that have sold within a very small radius of that property, similar era, similar size, and similar quality. That's what they're looking for. That's what's going to dictate and drive what your property is worth. So this is very important when you're doing a rehab, right? Is to know that it doesn't matter what a property 3 miles down the road sold for, that you remodel it to those standards. It matters what's in the immediate radius, what's in that neighborhood, and you got to make sure that you're paying attention. We talked about that in a podcast quite some time ago about what not to do in your rehabs. You don't want to over improve the neighborhood, right? So you have to really look at what are the comparable sales in the area, because that's what's going to dictate your value, and you want to make sure that you're doing a rehab that's equal to what the neighborhood, it's not over improving for the neighborhood. Otherwise, you're not going to force that equity that you think you are, right? So that's how residential is valued. Now, multifamily, commercial, anything that's not considered residential, so your multifamily apartments, your retail, your office space, all that, that's based on that's value based on the income and what those assets are trading for in local cap rates. So basically, cap rate is a measure of return. You can look at what things are trading for based on the income of that property. That'll give you what the cap rate is in the area, and then you just can work those numbers backwards to determine what something's worth. You take the cap rate for the area, and you take the net operating income, so your income minus your expenses, and you work that formula, and then that gives you the value of the building. So the great thing about this is that you can really affect. So whereas with single family homes, residential properties, you really don't have as much control. Yes, you can force the equity based on doing the work you're doing to it, things like that. But if your neighbor sells their property, that's gonna, and it's a similar property, that's gonna really dictate what it's worth, right? Whereas, yes, in the sense that if a commercial building sells and they sell it at a cap rate that's way higher, that could potentially affect the value as well, because it affects cap rates in the area. You do have more control over the value of your property with a commercial building, because you actually can have some control over the income, and that's what the value is based on. So you can do a lot of things when you buy a building to come in and change. You're buying a business, right? You're buying something that is generating income, and that income determines the value. So you can come in and you can make the building more efficient. Lots of people are putting in, things to manage the use of water and utilities and things like that, and be able to make sure that the buildings are being as efficient as possible. You can find where's waste, where's the past owner, where did they not manage effectively, where did they spend money that they didn't need to spend on something, right? And you can find some economies of scale. Maybe you buy a building that someone, there was not enough units to have that economy of scale of management, of maintenance person, so you had to bring in people to do work all the time, and you buy two within close proximity of each other, and now you've got maybe the ability to hire a full-time on-site manager or hire a full-time maintenance person, something like that, where you can cut costs and still provide the same service. So those are just a few ways where you can reduce those expenses, and that's going to change your bottom line, right? That's going to change your income that's coming in. You can increase your income as well, right? You can reduce your expenses. The other side of that is you can increase the income of it. So you can raise rents, right? Maybe you bought something that's just been under rented for a long time. Again, those long-term landlords that just don't want to mess with it. They don't want to rock the boat, so they just kind of leave it. They always pay the rent on time. I'm not gonna push their rent up because it's fine. I'm making good enough money. It's fine. I'm not gonna worry about it. And you find a lot of that, and so you bump them up to something that's more of a market rent. Now here in Oregon, we do have limitations on doing that. But you still can do it within a certain degree, and over time you could even, if they're way under market, it's going to take you several years to get them up to market rents, but you can get them there. You can, of course, add value, right? If the community justifies it, you could build a community center. You could add a park. You could upgrade the units and make them more appealing, more more updated. Those things are going to draw a higher paying tenant base that is going to pay more for the same unit, right? So you can add services. You can you can start charging for laundry. Believe it or not, there's some landlords that have a shared laundry facility, and they just include that in the rent, and the tenants are doing laundry all the time, and they're paying, the landlord's paying for the water, and I mean, goodness sakes, that's expense and income that you're missing out on, right? You're paying the expense and you're not even bringing any income in on it. So those are just a few ideas, but the bottom line is you can do a lot of things to both reduce your expenses and increase your income, and in the end, what that does is it creates a higher net operating income, and that's what your property value is based on. So if you can manage and run your business, your property better than the previous person, that's where you find your forced equity, is by managing it in a better way. And just a last reminder on this that I think is people miss is that oh, okay, well, I reduced my expenses, I increased my rent a little bit, okay, so I've got, $100 a month extra on per unit. Like, what's the big deal? It's not going to change my life. It's not really that big of a deal. And it's not exciting, right? It's like, well, I mean, that's great, but like, what does that really do for me? Which I would also say you're not thinking long term then if you're thinking that way. But I do want to demonstrate the power of value based real estate, because income based valuation, I guess I should say, because take that $100 a month and don't think of it as $100 a month. Think of it as on a 20 unit building, that's $2,000 a month or $24,000 a year, which is still, that's not an income. That's not going to probably pay your bills, right? But at a 5% cap rate, that is actually $480,000 in new equity that you have created. So $100 a month per unit difference actually made $500,000 in new equity. And there are ways you can leverage that, or you can maybe sell and take that equity, move it into something else. And so now you're taking those steps to build your portfolio and build up. So don't think of it as just $100 a month extra per unit. Think of it as, on the 20 unit, that's $500,000 of new equity that you can use to build your business and build your portfolio. So hopefully all this has been helpful. Look for opportunities to add value, and you're gonna be able to find opportunity, and that's what you should be looking for right now too. I mean, I think there's great opportunities to add value in growing markets and in markets that are changing. There's always opportunities, and there's always people looking to get rid of something that you can force some equity or find some equity. So go find some opportunities to add value to the real estate you find. Not only that though, add value to the owner that's selling it, because you're the one who is creating a solution to their problem and making it a win for everyone, right? So we're looking for opportunities to add value in real estate, but we're also looking for opportunities to add value to the people that we're buying it from, so we can help them get from where they are to where they want to be and not just help ourselves. So thanks again for listening. Hope you guys have a great rest of the day, and go and buy some amazing real estate. Until next time.